I'm here to moderate this session. The title of today's session is Online Education, a Different Paradigm. The format of the session is presentation, half an hour presentation by Dr. Masood Javed, followed by question answer, half an hour session of question answer and discussion. So if you have any question related to the session, please fill the Google form. We have already shared a day earlier, and we will address those questions during the discussion session. Now I would like to, we have participants from Nairobi, from FMIC, and from Kenya, South Africa. Now I would like to introduce our presenter, Dr. Masood Javed. Dr. Masood is working as consultant general and laparoscopic surgeon at a private hospital, Karachi. He has been involved in developing numerous face-to-face and online courses. He is an associate editor of Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences. He is a technical advisor at CORE, Teach, and course director of Certificate in Online and Distance Education. His main areas of interest are clinical and educational research, online education, and cognitive load theory. So over to you, Dr. Masood.
Thank you, Amber. First of all, thanks a lot for the Department of Educational Development, AKUH, for giving this opportunity to talk about the topic which is very near and dear to my heart and which is work for me all the way. Today, we're going to talk about online education, and it's a different paradigm, and why it is a different paradigm, and what's make it a unique experience for the developers as an educators and also as the students when we are experiencing those things as well. There is no conflict of interest of my talk and my financial relationship or the institutions and the content shared by other the panels. What is online education? When we talk to this and give these questions to everybody, the answer most of the time is related to the use of new electronic technologies and internet to facilitate learning. My take on this is that it is emphasis should not be on the electronic technologies and internet. When we say online education as is building and developing as time goes along, the use of these technologies to facilitate learning should be the main aim, because things have been changed. And if something we can do more appropriately, more in a way which align with the outcome of the students and enhance their learning, then we have to do it. We're not talking about only COVID era when remote learning is something, but just to use an online education within our curriculum and courses and all other things. So we use some of the technologies so that enhance the learning experience of our students. That's the important concern for all of us should be when we are working on those things. Having said that, online education, just like any other thing, is a it's a coin which have two sides. There are flip. So one is good and what is not so good as well. So let's say some of the disadvantages about those things. As it's depend upon technology, so failure of technology can happen because it builds on technology and it can happen at any place, and most of the time we know the Murphy's law. So when we are more prepared for those kind of things, the things can go wrong, just like in another session. There are no personal interaction or very less personal interaction as compared to the face-to-face teaching. Engaging audiences in online education is again a very difficult task which need to be done. Some of the technical skills, not all the skills, but many skill based curriculum and things are difficult to taught online. Although the clinical reasoning, the decision making, diagnostic skills, interpretation, these kind of written communication, that can be done even wonderful in online education, but examination and there are many kind of things which not 100% you can do it in online environment. You cannot make somebody a doctor without having a contact with the patients and the facilitator and the teachers there as well. And the most important and difficult for all of us, both at individual and organization level, is the time consuming of development of the content. Research have shown that if a person can develop a 1 hour of lecture or a learning experience in around 2 to 3 hours, it will going to take for 1 hour of a proper online educational experience, it will take around 20 to 30 hours. So 10 times more And apart from skills, time things is time commitment from the faculty is required, of course with the IT experts and instructional designers as well. But why still the world is moving around these things and we are working in this area as well? As there are many benefits. We all know that reinforce leads to increased retention, and as online experiences can be repeated on demand, so they can be shown by, because you cannot deliver a lecture multiple time in a day as well, but if it's recorded there as well, it can be repeated multiple times. And we are not talking about only the lecture, the asynchronous content development have this advantage much more appropriately as well. Another important aspect is the difference between the classroom learning and real life experiences can be dynamically improved by using online experiences. So it's not about just delivering lectures, it's about if you use virtual patients, scenarios based learnings, proper problem based solving of discussion forum. There are many things even can be done. Even the world is doing OSCEs as well in the online environment as well. But not only this, a properly developed online course by using emergent technologies, if you talked about Second Life and all other things, can really make a change in the way you taught to your students. Another important aspect is distributed practice. Most of the time we are restricted that we have this much amount of time with the faculty member, with the students and all other. To give you an example, tomorrow I'll be in one of the university in another city, and I'll be teaching faculty from 8 a.m. in the morning to the 4 p.m. and then I have come back by flight to Karachi as well. But if that thing can be done online, if can be done, we can distribute it in multiple small chunk, because majority of the time when I teaching and I saying them cognitive load theory and how the curriculum design should be there. So few faculty member ask, Dr. Masood, you are saying this thing, but what is happening to us from in the morning and all the days? So I just say that, yes, I expect this question from many of you, but we have some restrictions and administrative issues are there, which we cannot do it in face-to-face session. You all are coming up at different places. So we have to complete the contact hours in those things, but working on those things, design elements that can be distributed. And we have done the same thing in our one of the course of code as well, by distributing all the content in the 6 months. Engagement can be much higher, because engagement is not only just adding something as well, but relevant interactivity can element which increase the engagement. Gamification I'll discuss in one of my slide as well. Higher level of cognitive engagement when there is engagement is there, and we know that research have shown that increase recall and application. In my workshop, I ask faculty member, you are here to enjoy. Don't concern about, don't take notes, you'll have handouts, just go with the flow and you will learn more. And that's happened, and we taught many different skills to the most of the faculty members in those things. Motivation is much higher in properly developed online course. We only learn when we want to learn. And we all know about this WIIFM. Unfortunately in today's session, because you are on the a different platform, I cannot talk to you different questions as well. But you asked how many of us know is this YFM? It's what's in it for me. So one, your course has been developed with these kind of proper develop of the content as well. The control and autonomy will be among the students themselves, and once the autonomy control among them, their motivation is much higher. We know research have shown there are diverse learning styles of our students, and it's difficult to develop a course in which diverse learning styles can be addressed, which some are a textbook type of thing, which textual things, some while learn while doing, some learn while explaining the concept to other. So these different type of learning styles is very much difficult in our current practice of face to face, when we talked about, without talking about in online education. For the same purpose, it is recommended to have a buffet approach of development of the courses. So you can address different students as well. Those who like to learn more can do much more of the content as compared to who are superficial learners, or even some elective things. And one of the content can be shared by maybe a SCORM package with a video, with a reading material, so that student, it can be a student paced learning much more, so they can think and select what is more appropriate for them to make sure the outcome is achieved if you have properly designed the assessment as well. Personalization of learning is much easier to do in online environment. We have developed many scenarios based learning in which there is a flow which is going on. Those students who are answering questions correctly and knowing the concept are have a linear experience as compared to those who are not in that purpose. What they are doing it, they will be going for the remedial aspect as well without knowing what is going on. So it's not only the personalization, you select some of the thing which can be done on the buffet approach. Personalization of learning can be developed if you develop proper usage of authoring tools and development of the content. That is the reason we said it required much more time, not only time, the different skill set as an educator as well. And reuse, reduce and recycle, of course the development of the content is much higher in time and energy, but you can use it multiple times, millions of the times same can contents can be used. That is a very much advantage for using online courses, because they can be reduced and recycled. Having said that, all other places situation at many places currently is like this. Every university, every organization, most of the organization are working towards it, but what they do is, this is the one of the my comment which I always say, online education is much more than lecturing online. As COVID arise, some like Aga Khan University Hostel already equipped about many different things as well. One of the few first workshop which I have attended for online education is AKUH, maybe 10 years back. But it's not the place at the not people are an institution are not much planned and prepared beforehand. So what is going to happen once they start in this of remote learning, they start delivering lectures online, and once they deliver lectures online they are satisfied. As COVID arises more, they start using, okay, how to do assessment, then they learn how to do assessment with multiple choice questions and things are fine. If at institution online lectures and the MCQs are going on, we are comfortable with those things, so we are doing wonderfully. Having said that, this is the start of the journey. We need to go beyond by lecturing online as well, because on e-learning or online education is not the broadcasting of existing documents over the internet. I asked one of the university, I'm sitting there and we are talking with the principal about thing. So they said, we are using e-learning. Oh, I said, wonderful, that's a one, it's 5 6 years back. I said, what you'll do, we send all our lectures are available on our websites, everything is available on the website, so people can see the lectures in the PowerPoint form, they are available and online. And we are saying, by uploading our PowerPoint on the website is e-learning. And then we expect that why students are not coming into the classroom, because majority of the teachers also just verbalize the presentation content. So that's not the proper way of going in the online environment, because it should be learner centered, it should be flexible, and it should be engaging. In online thing, engagement is the one of the major what we can say Achilles heel as well. We need to work on those things as well, because it's not about the technology, it's about learning. I always said, don't use technology for the sake of technology. Only use technology if you think that will improve learning. So it's not about technology which you are using, but by learning, it's about the tools that will help us to improve learning, and the tools that give us the ability to connect, collaborate and communicate with others around the world. So using of those things that really makes a difference, and that is a paradigm shift. We need to go out of the mode of only delivering lectures and then exposing our students to only this thing. That is one of the tool, of course, but it's not the end of the story. Having said that, how many of us thinks about online learning theories by developing our courses? Majority of us are not aware of. We don't have a quiz right now because of the limitation, but when I ask this question, there are 80% of our faculty members and educators who are not well versed about online learning theories, because the principles are different in online as compared to face to face. Just to give you an example, there's a connectivism. Connectivism is a theoretical framework for understanding learning in a digital age. It emphasizes how internet technologies such as search engines, wikis, online discussion forums, and social networks contributed to the new avenues of learning. And it said that learning does not simply happen within an individual, but within and across the network. What sets connectivism apart from other theories like constructivism, which we usually follow, learning can reside outside of ourselves, within an organization or the databases, and it focused on connecting specialized information set and connection that enable us to learn more. So once a course was developed based on that paradigm and that framework, it will be 360-degree opposed to what we are doing currently in at many places. And because we are generalizing our content, is not related to one or two institutions who are doing wonderful job, but overall that's a limitation of our. Another is online collaborative learning. That teacher is a facilitator where students collaborate in online environment, and not only the information transfer happen like this during their discussion. And the courses developed on OCL theory have a main learning contents as a discussion forum, which is threaded discussion forum is online environment. Usually we have a discussion forum, but it's an add-on to our courses. But if you develop content related to that thing, the discussion forum is the prime learning thing, and other things can be add-on. So our course can be developed on those kind of things. And the most appropriate for our scenario, as a faculty member, we are developing our contents, whether from the lectures to the using of authoring tools, cognitive load theory of multimedia learning. Such nice 12 principles from that theory, if you extract them and make sure that is a theory, that what is happening in the mind of the learner when they're learning things from the multimedia. In online, we are talking about audios and videos. So that is an important theory. It will help you to improve your learning contents, which is known as LOs most of the time in online environment. Not only this, but you can apply this theory on the whole course component as well. So students are not overloaded among those things, because what happened in a one lecture followed by another lecture followed by another lecture, every teacher comes with their full energy and they try to teach all the books available and all the content. But what is happening in the learner mind, we are not concerned about those things. I use the term that instead of teaching framework, we need to shift over to the learning framework. So it's not about what we say or do in the classroom, it's what happened to the students while we are in the classroom, and that it can be go on and on. So there are different tool sets are using apart from team Google Classrooms or a few LMS as well. There are multiple tools available to develop courses based on those things as well, because we need to understand students are not the consumer. We most of the time in as tech, that students are the consumer, but they are producer as well. And that is the reason that why Facebook is so much used by us, why Instagram is there, because you are producing something at the same time in learning content as well. When we use these online educational theories, we make sure that they are not only the consumer, they are producer, and the term was coined as prosumers. So they are consuming and producing at the same time. So we make sure, and it's difficult to address and develop those such kind of like learning experiences, I said, but we need to start working on those things. So let me talk about some of the online educational strategies for effective learning experiences. I'll point out few of them. As COVID arises, one wonderful thing has happened, that people are open up for the online education. They start looking at those things, experiencing those things. The initial experiences with many faculty members are not so good, but as time goes by, they learn to do it. But all these things which you can see right now in the is a lecturing things. These are online meetings platforms. You can do different lectures and some breakout rooms kind of things as well, but primary remains the same. So on live session, how to engage and make sure that is much more effective, which you are practically doing as well, is a conversational style. Many faculty member I heard, they said it's very difficult to talk in front of the computer and looking that you're talking to computer, nobody is there. But you should have a conversational style, and I usually recommend all of them to open the chat box as well and try to address those things as well. Real time interaction is much more important. So one of the prime skill which I train to the faculty member, split your screen into two halves. One of the time your lecture is delivered there, on the other path you have all the questions coming to you, so can you really interact with your audience in real time. Polling can be done, a wonderful tool, not much utilized, but in a lecture format by what is going on, asking different questions. A wonderful tool should be used. Gamified assessment are there. People are using Kahoot during the session, really engaging their another device from there as well. Whiteboard, you can do wonderful work with the whiteboard by doing the concept mapping, working together in the groups. You can see who is writing, developing some of the thing, completing the diagrams and all other things as well. Breakout rooms has really made life wonderful. We'll try to make sure in every session which is more than 1 hour, there are breakout rooms and give them specific tasks. It's not just use the breakout room, but you need to give them a specific task and then roam around to see what is going on. And with the breakout rooms, there are or many other collaborative tools are available. Personally, I use breakout rooms in with the Padlet, so that what the groups are doing and working on the assignment, all the persons can see it. As a facilitator can see what is developing, and if something is going not up to the mark, you can go there and facilitate and take a different approach. So there are many such tools are available. If we talk sometimes, so in real time, these are all effective tools which engage your students, make sure the learning objectives are achieved, go to the higher level of objective by having creating and developing something, as compared to just by describing and defining those things by using these breakout and collaborative tools as well. Another important, we all know the videos. We, apart from our own videos, we are doing screencasting, just like this session, in which we are sharing our screen and saying people are we at some places also going for the animated videos for the lectures and doodlies. And recently what we last software which we purchased is a doodly, which is artificial intelligence based. So creation of doodly is much at a higher pace, while doodly is when you are whiteboard animations which you are developing for the sessions as well. So that's an important. Having said that, it's a one way of communication. All new recent educators are against only the one way of flow of communication. It should be interactive. So here comes the interactive videos. Many of us are aware of this thing but not using in our classrooms. Interactive video is something, the video will interact with the students, so you know what is going on. If a video is seen and I'm looking around at the back and reviewing a video coming to my screen, nobody knows. Even you can see from the log, the Dr. Masood has saw that video one time is 100% complete. By having interactive video, quiz can be shown, their answer can be recorded, their branching can be done, there are hotspots, it's a whole new domain. And last time we have done a workshop about developing interactive videos. So this is an interactive video. And even if you doesn't have authoring tools, one of the site Edpuzzle, you go there, create a free account, and yes, you can develop your own interactive video free of cost. And now H5P plugin is already there, which are embedded within the learning management system. So it's make your life quick without any much more technical knowledge. You can work on those things. So we need to go apart from simple videos to interactive videos to make sure that what is going to happen. Discussion forums, online discussion forums are rarely used. Even the students are not allowed to ask questions, but the courses can be developed whole on the discussion forums as well. Blogs is another thing. There are the list is huge. I'm just pointing few of the modalities. Blogging, in which reflective writing you can encourage your student. Just to give you an example, students are posted in surgical ward for 4 weeks. They go through them, go to the OPD, and if you just add on that after 1 week, you need to write a reflective writing on a blog in which you write what you learn and what are your new areas where you want to improve on or things as well. If one of the group which doesn't do this reflective writing and blogging, other groups will go this blog writing with the reflective, they learn more. It gives them to think about their experiences and where they are lacking, what are the things are good and low. So adding those kind of thing which is easier. Having said that, you need to make sure how to you can have a peer feedback according to them. You can mark 10% of the assessment into the students go through them as well. Apart from blogs which is individually written, there are wikis which is collaborative writing tools as well. And if every LMS have the wikis available to them, even if you doesn't have it, your institution doesn't have it, you can use Google Docs for collaborative writing and developing your wikis. So they can be shared publicly, they can be shared within a group. It's your choice what you want to do it. But collaborative writing, when we talked about online learning, that's an important tool as well. Many of us are, as an clinical, because I'm a surgeon, many of the faculty member, how to do that clinical education is online environment. Having said that, and we are not using those much more the virtual patients. I know some faculty members are using the virtual patient as Khan, and they are developing as well. So using virtual patients in your education makes a real thing. The diagnostic skill, the clinical reasoning skills, and many other kind of concept, and it's a real interaction, and even experience is much higher. We use authoring tools to develop. Personally, I use Storyline, Articulate Storyline for development of the virtual patients. If you want to explore, there is another cyber patient site which is free to use for the virtual patients. Many of the patients, Medscape have some free simulations, but those patients are at a higher level, not at the undergraduate, but at the resident level, and as a faculty member you can explore those things as well. So we need to include those things and develop. One cautious is, instead of things which are right now available to you using it, if you develop those things, whether they are maybe technology robust, but if you develop a contextual learning experience with those virtual patients, the learning is much enhanced. One of the institution have a registration of license of score for their residents, and it's a wonderful tool. They invest huge amount of money for that purpose, but it's failed. The reason is that it's a wonderful tool developed from USA, but many of the things are not contextual in our practice at our institution in Pakistan, and they're not practically much more utilized, and they have to abandon that thing. So that is the reason I recommend to develop contextual local things as well. And last year at Rifa University, the international conference, thanks a lot for the invitation, we have done a workshop about, we develop these virtual patients or a simple tool like PowerPoint. So there's a 3 hours of workshop which we have done developing virtual patients with the simple software which you already have is the PowerPoint, because that's the starting here, and we work on those things as well. Another important aspect is authoring tools. We need to have different authoring tools, which by development of the content, the things are much higher. After HTML5, previously we are dependent on Flash, we are dependent upon the different plugins for having videos and interactions. But after HTML5 language, things are easier. Now you can run your videos within the browser without having a third-party software and all other things, and it can adjust itself to any device which is used. So it's modify according to the device detected. So, and authoring tools are developing. We have made some scenarios and Flash based in which we clinical reasoning is still taught to the student. The link I have just sharing a reference as well, which we have done this study in Dow University of Health Sciences. It's a randomized controlled trial, and it's a clinical reasoning skill. One group was gone to the computer based simulation with book, and other is only with the book, and the results at the OSCE we have taken, and they are much more motivation, their scores are much more higher, those who are experiences that online thing in addition to their face-to-face things. It was the reading material at that point. Gamification can be used. It's not only using of Kahoot and quizzes of different gamification software, but when you are developing your courses, their badges can be added, their leaderboards can be done, their levels up can be done. And right now, an LMS in which I am working on it, we have all those gamification features, and the competitions are going on, so the participant learn during that competition, and it's related to the outcome achieved, those things. One of the last point of related to that thing is micro learning. The world is shifting. One difference is we plan in face to face, the lecture is of around 1 hour of fine duration. When we're doing a Zoom session, it's only again for 1 hour, that fines. But technically speaking, learning content in a lecture in online environment should not be more than maybe 15 minutes. And it's wonderful when we call it micro learning if the things, the assessment, the learning, the content, the video, whatever you are sharing, it's completed within the 5 minutes of time. So small chunking of information going on for the, especially for continuous professional development and all other things, should have a larger impact on your skill set as well. And it's difficult to all of the content convert into micro learning, but there are ways in which you can go for a crisp short content which is much more engaging for your students and enhance their learning. Having said that, everything cannot be done in online environment. It is all about the right blend. When we talked about medical education, a doctor, competent doctor, everything is not done in online. It's a This is a skill-based curriculum. A flipped classroom, a blended learning curriculum can enhance those things or developing those kind of things. So variation exists due to the nature of the course content, the learning objective, and the learner profile. What different modalities are you using? What is the administrative supports available? How much skill set is there? How much strong is our IT support is there? How much finances are available? Based on all these things, you select what is the best and this current scenario for that thing and work on those things. So it's all about the right blend, as there is not one thing is right and wrong, and things are evolving. So I just 30 minutes, I just like to say the illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn. And after this COVID pandemic, we all know that this is a way forward. We need to work on this area stronger, not only because of the COVID, but the uses of the advantage adherent within the online education, so that the learning of our students is at a much higher level. So in the end, this is my last slide. Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teacher can be transformational. So thanks a lot. Again, thanks a lot for Department of Educational Development for this great experience and giving this opportunity. So I am here with the panelists.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Masood, for this wonderful presentation. Now we move on to the question answer and the discussion session. We have invited few panelists who are involved in technology enhanced learning and who have wide experience of blended learning as well. So we have Ms. Azra Naseem. She is Director, Blended and Digital Learning Network at Aga Khan University. She has a vast experience of research, teaching, and educational development in the areas of e-learning design and digital literacies. We also have Dr. Sadia Fatma from Department of Biological and Biomedical Sciences. She's currently pursuing fellowship from the Famer Institute, USA, and her main area of interest is technology enhanced learning in medical education. We also have Dr. Azam Afzal from Department for Educational Development and Department of Medicine. He's the course director for the advanced level course on teaching and learning and co-director for the assessment course in the Masters of Health Professions Education program. We also have Dr. Sadia Masood from the Department of Dermatology. She has done her Masters in Health Profession Education from Aga Khan University. She has done fellowship from Famer Institute. She has wide experience in technology enhanced learning, and she has been working on blended learning and virtual patient program. So I welcome you all, the panelists, and now over to you. So we have received a few questions, so I will address one by one. So the first question we have received is, how do you think this paradigm shift due to COVID has affected the faculty who are not much tech savvy? So over to the panelist. G. Dr. Azra, Dr. Sadia Masood, Dr. Sadia Fatma, Dr. Azam Afzal. So the discussion is open.
Thank you very much, Dr. Masood. Nice presentation, and thank you, Amba, for inviting us here. To answer your question, actually, this is something very interesting. We all think that our faculty is not tech savvy, but I actually do not agree to this after this pandemic, because we had to shift in an emergency without any prior training. We were receiving training 1 minute and we were applying it the next minute. So I think each and every one of our faculty was able to adapt to this change. So there is something in us which is inherent, I think, because of all of our, will to change, or maybe love for medical education. So I think that this COVID actually took away this fear out of us, that we can't teach online or we can't do stuff online. So I think this is a positive. I hope to hear Azra and Sadia's feeling about that as well.
Thank you, Sadia. So, and thank you, Amber and Dr. Masood. So I will build on what Dr. Sadia Fatma has said. And it's very interesting. There is a perception that faculty members are resistant or they're not tech savvy. And I agree with Sadia Fatma. What we have seen, at least at the Aga Khan University, is that not only the faculty are were able to quickly move the transition, they were actually very motivated to learn new ways of teaching. And the amount of requests that we received from all ranks, from instructor level right up to the level of professors, from surgeons, from clinicians, so everybody was really looking for ways to continue teaching and learning activities. The clinical faculty were also looking for ways to continue with some sort of clinical engagement if it can be done online. So what we have seen is something very unusual during this period of pandemic.
Okay. Any further comment from the panelists?
Okay, thank you. This is Sadia Masood. Thank you, Amber, for inviting me, and thank you, Dr. Jawad. This is very nice presentation, and I always learn from your presentation. I think maybe I attended some of your webinars, and I really enjoyed your presentation. So about the faculty perspective, I think the pandemic teach them how to be a good teacher, because if you are not communicating to the student directly, then your expertise, you need more expertise, a good teacher. So during pandemic, initially, like I'm taking care of most of the postgraduate stuff. So initially the faculty was a bit resistant. They were not happy that how they could able to manage this. But gradually, with the passage of time, they start enjoying this strategy. They learn how to use the Zoom. They learn how to use the team. And I'm thankful to Azra and team, because they help all of us. They help each and every faculty who just need to learn something new, because every week we have a new topic, a new engagement strategy that Azra and team, they were teaching us. So all this teamwork that helped the faculty to learn the new skills, and now I think most of our faculty, initially they were reluctant to do these sessions, and now they just want, after COVID, they just want to continue the online session. So I think it's a big positive change, and I think that is the point which we need to.
Thank you, Dr. Azra, Dr. Sadia, and Dr. Sadia Fatma, and Dr. Sadia Masood. We have another question. What softwares can be used for real-time quizzes during lectures?
So I think I usually I can answer first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. For me, I usually use Kahoot, but Kahoot because I'm usually dealing with dermatology. For dermatology, we are not going to put pictures and everything. So for me, the best is quizzes. So I use quizzes, online quizzes. That is the best. Initially, it was free. We can upload as long as a long scenario that we can do along with the pictures, and the best thing is it's student centered. The student can see their score. There is a scoreboard, leaderboard, their activities, and then we can give, either we can do during our synchronous session, or we can give as an assignment. So for me, quizzes work well.
The Kahoot and Sukra, quizzes is most of the time that some of the differences in quizzes, you can make a class. So you can see the student progress in a longitudinal way, which is difficult to do in the Kahoot. Kahoot previously only have a live, but they have now assignment part as well. So asynchronously can be done. Another difference is quizzes have then it is because it's only have a free version, so all other things are there as well. I personally use quizzes much more in current scenario. Having said that, in Kahoot and quizzes, you have to develop your questions pre-hand beforehand, then you can administer during thing. But in a live class, if you want to engage your students as well, have a brainstorming session, make some, apart from only quizzes, make to ask different questions, their comments, voting can be done. competitions can be done within a team, not only the individuals. So Socrative is another good software. If you use it, it have all these features, which is, it is not that much competitive as compared to Kahoot or quizzes, but the open-ended questions, having make them, mark them, and having the voting feature available among those kind of things, which are real advantage at different scenario. So one thing is not appropriate for anything. One of the observation at my different one, if one knows Kahoot, he or she start using Kahoot in each and every place. Maybe something can, if doesn't have a LMS, it can be done in Google Forms. Because there is no limitation of number of questions or the number of answers, in which we are limitation in quizzes, Kahoot, and all other things. So there are different things, but these two softwares, the Socratives, are great.
Okay, any further comment from the panelist? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So we have received one more question. For remote examination of the patient, can involve remote limited physical and remote expertise? I think they are talking about the OSCEs.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So quite recently, what I observed at, again, AKU, a pilot of OSCEs being conducted, right? So what they did is, for example, they wanted a chest examination to be done. So they developed their own, the facilitators developed their own video first, is that they took a pillow, they drew on the white cover of that pillow all the ribs and everything else, and they examined it thinking that that's the chest of a patient. They shared that with the students beforehand, made them practice, do the same thing, and then the OSCE was conducted. But the students were very smart. They actually asked their siblings to replace the pillow. So they practiced on a pillow and then gave the OSCE on their siblings. So yes, this is one way that we can, do OSCE examinations online as well. We sometimes actually sort of look at our students in a way that maybe they can't do it and they can't learn it effectively, but our students are very smart and they can find a way out of it. So this is just one example that I had wanted to share with all of you.
Okay. So
In Zoom session as well, if we talked about the OSCE, if there are 14 stations, you can have a 14 breakout rooms. You can have one faculty member of each one, and the students can be roam around. Facilitator can make sure that he shift student after a specific amount of time. And some of the universities, for example, even the communication things like taking histories and all things can be done with even with the facilitator. But when the examinations are done, they ask them to do that examination in front of the camera with the siblings and all other. So people find a way to do and those things, which is not the ideal one, but there are ways by the breakout room can make our life much more easier in that instance.
okay. So
Yes,
let's
I
move
think
on.
OSCE, we can do OSCE, we can do talks. Talks can be done through Zoom, through the breakout room. So I think as we are going to learn different strategies, we are just thinking that how we can develop more talk station online, how we can develop OSCE station. So I think the things are improving gradually. So everything, most of the thing we can do virtually.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Do you
I
think
just wanted to add something.
Gigi,
Although we're staying in a very looking forward to doing online OSCEs, however, we must acknowledge that there is a very strong limitation. It is not, or remote OSCEs is not the ideal format for doing it. It's just something that we have, that we are kind of forced to do in the moment. Why is that? Because again, since there are a lot of um, areas or issues around that, like if we're doing it remotely, as some of my colleagues have identified, that yes, there are issues that students might try to either cheat or do something else. The other thing is it's very dependent on video quality and the environment that the facilitator or the examiner is actually looking at. Okay, so if depending on what the angle is, that can really affect how the examiner is grading that examination station. So it's small things like this that don't make OSCE a good tool for remote usage. Okay, having said that, we can use them for a more of a formative OSCE. If we don't think about it as summative, think of it as formative, and this is for student improvement, then it's still a lot better. And its use is still very well justified.
Any further comment? Okay, let's move on to the next question. Do you think PowerPoint presentations are ineffective due to it being a little monotonous? So if so, what other methods do you think are more effective?
So I think PowerPoint presentations, yes, they are. They can be interactive and they can be monotonous. It depends on the teacher how they want to proceed. In between the presentation, they can have some activities. They can develop through activities. So it's up to the teacher how they want to have their session. So it's mostly teacher centered or teacher dependent activity. So it's either we can make it just monotonous presentation that 1, 2, 3, 4 slides are coming and teacher is reading, or we can in between do the discussion. In between we can do some other activities, just like polling or something, or Padlet or something like that we can add. So in my opinion, I think it depends on the teacher.
So if I can just build on what Dr. Sadia Masood has already said, we can use PowerPoint slides, particularly if you're teaching online, because a lot of the online systems are very teacher directed, because it's a teacher who has the control and the students often don't have the controls. So the teacher or the faculty member can use PowerPoint slides as prompts. Instead of putting their lecture notes on the slides, you can use your slides as prompts for conversations, for getting students to think about an issue or engaging them in a discussion. And you can, as Dr. Masood Javed had also pointed out, you can have a conversation using the chat window in Zoom. So your PowerPoint can be your prompts, your signposts for your 45-minute session, which is really not your lecture slides, but really conversation starters or prompts for reflections. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Wonderful things
Yeah,
have been
I'd
done.
like-
Gigi,
Sorry, go
Please,
ahead.
Azam after you. Azam, please.
Azam.
Thank you, Masood. So like all the different softwares, PowerPoint is also a tool. Okay, how you use that tool, how effectively you use that tool is again limited only by your imagination. And the good thing is that PowerPoint has been evolving over time. That software has been evolving over time as well. So we've seen, as Masood has pointed out, that it can be used to make virtual patients. It can be used to make online video lectures. It can be used to make like a variety of things. So which actually extends its use much further. It's all dependent on the faculty's imagination of how they put it to use.
Masood.
Yeah, no, it's the same comments. It's a tool. It's depend upon how we use it, maybe for the discussion forum, where the wonderful in online especially, and developing some of the other way of learning. When we discuss about PowerPoint, it's about limited about how you make it. So that it's a tool, so we can use it. And as I discussed as well, we developed some of the very advanced things, and people doesn't believe when we show them in the front starting off. We don't say that it's a PowerPoint workshop. Workshop is something else. We saw which tool you are seeing right now. So hardly few of them said that it's a PowerPoint. Then we saw that even you can do by even clicks as well. Apart from these things, student can open their screen by having hyperlinks and other way, and the branching things as well. You can really make something interesting for the student as well. So taking it to the teacher centered to the patient student centered as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. So which software would be ideal to use if a teacher wants to create real-time diagrams during their session? So which software would be ideal to use?
So there are many. It depends on what operating system you're at. So for example, if you're using Zoom and you have Windows laptop available, Whiteboard is the one that comes to our mind. Even PowerPoint can be used as a blank, drawing area. Paint can be used for your drawing and all of those. If you're using Apple, then you can use Doceri. That's a free thing that it actually can help you, draw stuff and share stuff, put in pictures and all of those things. So it all depends on what you're using and what actually is your outcome orientation. These are some which I knew of.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment?
Yes, there are many tools as pointed out from the classroom to the whiteboard. The difference is in the PowerPoint, when you start in the online environment, you can only do it yourself. The other person cannot do it. Whether if you have a Zoom and other thing, the all person can contribute to your making of the diagrams and other thing as well. One limitation which I experience and people also are asking about, by designing something from the fingers from your laptop is difficult. If you really want to make some diagrams, you need to connect with the laptop. The iPad or the iPhone is there, so you can use the stylus, or there are available USB ports with the pens, so you can draw really, which is much more professional looking and nice as compared to working with the fingers. That's one of the limitation by going on these things.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Masood. So we have another question. The question is, what strategies can be used to make the session more interactive during online session? G, over to the panelist.
I think Azra has the most answers in this regard. Please, Azra.
Actually, I was going to say that Dr. Sadia Fatma and Dr. Sadia Masood are the experts. They've been running boot camps for faculty exactly on these topics at Aakan University. So just a couple of ideas, and then other panelists can contribute. I think one of the suggestions that I can offer is to make sure that your session is not too long. Because what, so instead of, let's say, a 2-hour long Zoom live session, break it down, because, breaking it down into sort of smaller chunks will actually keep your students more engaged and energized. But if you have like a 2-hour long session, then your students will also kind of lose interest. Sitting down, concentrating on a Zoom session is also cognitively very demanding, and we know from research, but also from our experience. So I think one strategy, very simple, make sure your session is of shorter duration, and the engagement, as I said, try and use your Zoom session for conversation, for engagement, for really talking to your students, because they can do a lot of other things before they come to your class or after the class using your LMS, your virtual learning environment. So those are the two things that I'd like to add. And over to our experts, Sadia and Dr. Sadia.
Yes, Dr. Sadia Fatma and Dr. Sadia Masood, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, completely agree with what Azra said. Shorten your lecture duration. And just one word of caution is that do not add any activity just for the sake of activity. An activity should be meaningful, and it should have an outcome. So you should have your learners' preferences and outcomes in mind when you design that activity. Many of the times we've seen that teachers just add into active learning while strategy there, but unfortunately that does not fit the bill. So this is the one word of caution for anyone who's designing their activities.
I totally agree. totally agree with both of you. I think whatever activities we are designing, we just think about our learners. What is their status? How they can learn? I think we need to focus on these things. So I think that is very important whenever we are designing any activity. Learners should be the first priority.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few more questions. What are the major challenges of conducting online sessions during COVID-19 pandemic, and how can it be overcome?
So first, me. I think to me the main challenge was how we can connect to the students who are in a remote area. They have some connectivity issues, so it's difficult that how we can take all of them. Because sometimes that is the main problem, and because a lot of online sessions, sometimes we have connectivity issues, and along with that, recently we have electricity shut down and all these issues. So these are the problems which we faced. Otherwise, most of the sessions they run very smoothly. So we designed some asynchronous activities on VLE, so that we try to overcome.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to few more questions. Okay, so what are the different ways to take online assessment, especially MCQs and subjective tests?
Dr. Sadia Fatma is, she's been running an online assessment workshop also, so I would definitely request Dr. Sadia Fatma to, share her experience there. But just to add, if the person who has asked this question, if they are from AKU, then our virtual learning environment has several options for faculty members to incorporate assessment activities, both formative and summative. So that's one platform which is available to all AKU faculty members.
And this is exactly what we used for our assessments. And this is what we usually tell our faculties and people during our workshops as well. What we did extra or add on was just to take care of the cheating and the malpractice angle, we added proctoring in it. And for that, we had to design, a stepwise proctoring guide for facilitators. And of course, Zoom was our savior, because through that we could proctor. So for example, right now we have 9-10 individuals. One of us is a facilitator. We're proctoring them. We're looking at what their screen is showing. We knew VLE page, how does it look like on various different devices. So we were absolutely sure when a student was opening another tab, we knew that that's not the VLE page or that's not our question page. So VLE was something that actually really helped us in designing and offering our assessments. So that I would advise everyone to use it and explore it. It has many options. I'm sure I haven't even explored them all. Still, there are many options available.
One comment when we talked about online assessment, most of the time we, for our educators, most of the time we only think in terms of MCQs. So which is usually we do in pen and paper pencil. When if you want to explore the two benefits of using technology, the question, instead of a writing of text, it can be in a video form as well. So the queuing effect is much lower and the keywords is not there to identify if there is. Plus there are different other type of questions as well. Instead of asking a chest x-ray is there and asking what is the finding in chest x-ray, you can show the chest x-ray to the student and they have to click at the, for example, any opacity and with the pleural effusion, that this is the correct answer is marked only when they clicked at the specific point. So the question can be developed in those kind of things, but images can be arrange in those, for example, ultrasound finding and the image of ultrasound, these kind of things. So these are other possibilities which are already there, but for many of us don't explore them in those things. We remains there what we are doing in the paper and pencil is doing in the online thing. So you can work on those things. I know some of my colleagues who are working on the clinical things as well and using virtual patient as assessment tool as well. So it's not only for the learning, currently it is much more used for the learning, but doing a way so how you can assess your student as well on those complex scenarios as well, and which can add value to their assessments as well.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I'm going to address is, how can we achieve attitudinal outcomes through online education?
So when we're talking about attitudinal, we're talking about changing behavior, right?
Yes.
And things like professionalism. And so the important thing about that is you have to see how is it already planned in your curriculum. Okay, it's not, you're not going to take it as short stopgap measures. There has to be a plan, it has to be long term, and it has to be already implemented. Now, if you have things that are blended, if you have things that are already online, so what you can do is you can gradually keep on repeating that exposure. Along with um, having just saying or showing professionalism and role playing, you can also get students involved within certain things. You can give them activities in which they crusade for things, that they advocate for certain healthcare issues.
Okay. With this, we are going to conclude the session. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Masood, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you, Ms. Azra Naseem, Dr. Sadia Fatma, Dr. Sadia Masood, Dr. Azam Afzal, for taking your time out. And we had a very fruitful discussion on online education. Thank you so much. And now the session is over. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for invitation. Thank you so much.